This is stunning to me, especially because they're really charging this word DEI as if it's something that undermines the ability for the government to hire the best people. It's actually the opposite of that. When we're trying to hire the best of the best, having a more inclusive search to go to HBCUs or Hispanic serving institutions to find as big of an applicant pool as possible, to me, these are the kind of things that help us to hire the best of the best. What Donald Trump is doing is successively lying to people under the guise of some noble ideal. But I remind people, as he talks about being a great government cutter, the last time the American budget was balanced, the last time we eliminated a deficit and began to reduce our debt was under Bill Clinton, who brought a plan to Congress and worked in partnership to lower costs. The person who is the biggest waste, fraud, and abuser, we know this objectively, the person who created the biggest profligate spending and hole in our budget was Donald Trump in his first term, who raised our deficit more than any modern president. And so we have to understand what's happening here. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Again, these sweeping conclusions about every person who claims to be a Democrat in America is, to me, absurd. The reality is I work in a caucus of 47 people who have been standing up and fighting for the Americans in their state as best as they can. When they stand up and say hiring processes should be inclusive of women and minorities who often don't get an opportunity to apply for the jobs because the search parameters are so narrow and so small, that we should look at ways of searching our college campuses for better talent, making sure that we have diverse teams. Why? Because everybody from the Harvard Business School to some of our biggest consultants have shown that diverse teams are more successful at delivering missions. Private sector institutions understand this. So again, I know this is a time of labeling with a broad brush, Democrats are this, Republicans are that. This is the kind of thinking I think that's hurting our country. We need to be talking about how do we best achieve our goal with actually the most diverse nation on the planet Earth, that we have been successful as a country, whether it's going to the moon or beating the Nazis, have been done with everybody in our country getting on the field and participating in the best way possible. Donald Trump wants to try to demonize ideas of inclusion, of equity, of fairness, and that is unfortunate and frustrating, and he's using that as a way of ripping out entire aspects of our government that are vital. To tear down USAID under the guise of DEI has allowed our frontier scientists who were in places like Tanzania fighting Ebola. We no longer have the best scientists in the world from the United States of America fighting Ebola, fighting tuberculosis, fighting against bird flu. That has all been ripped away by Donald Trump using terms like DEI as a justification for making us less safe. We should be outraged that organizations and agencies created by Congress in a bipartisan way have now been torn down by a president who has no authority or does not have the legal justification for doing that. And so I understand that they want to distract you over here by talking about trans people. They want to talk about DEI. They want to talk about all these things as a distraction to the truth of what they're doing, which is making us less safe, making government more corrupt, violating people's privacy, and ultimately, how's that lower costs working for Americans? From eggs to housing, are we seeing any change in the cost of living for Americans? What executive order can you point to that has made things more affordable for Americans? Absolutely zero or none. But what has happened is a person like Elon Musk has had unfettered access to your data, to your most private information to use for God knows what, as a government contractor, as a government military contractor. What he can do with it is stunning.